Walking away from Auckland and leaving the city behind, the first 600 kilometres of Te Araroa had been nothing close to what I had expected. When I think of New Zealand, I picture snowy mountains and blue lakes. Though I'd never done a through hike like this before, it seemed strange to be walking through not just little towns for supplies, but through actual cities. Cities with people walking their dogs and going to work. People on their daily routine surrounded by concrete, what I was trying to move myself as far as possible from. Walking down a suburban footpath, pack and poles in tow, a lady asked me what I was training for. Completely unaware that her neighbourhood was part of a trail that spanned the country and connected hikers from around the world. In the Pirongia forest, she was probably right though that I should have trained before this, because starting at sunrise, I'd walk my first 50-kilometre day on trail.
Just waking up, had a good night's sleep. Dreams a little weird, but not that deep.
It's just beautiful out here, getting the start of a sunrise now. Gonna smash out 50 k's of the day and get to town, but it's so pretty out here. The goal was to reach Waitomo, a tourist town, but with more mud than trail, quick was hardly how I was feeling. I sat in many fields this day, on the side of dirt roads, counting just how many kilometres I had to go, and eating the treats in my pack I'd told myself I'd save. Mud aside, I did make it to town that afternoon. I'd been lucky after my goodbyes in Auckland to still crisscross and walk partially with Christian, my hiking buddy from the start. And now, both needing a partner to tackle the upcoming Wanganui River, it was decided that I would catch up to Dawson, to Blackwater raft through Waitomo's caves and once again walk together.
Is this how you get around on TA?
You know, I dabble from time to time. It's no biggie.
Professional hitchhiker right here. Wait for all 0 cars to come past and pick us up in the rain.
This guy's gonna pick us
This
up.
is the
Ready?
guy?
Ready? This is the one.
This is the one.
Hey.
This is the one next time.
Alright.
We got this.
I'd never really thought of myself as being a slow hiker, and by the end had actually gotten a bit of a reputation on trail for the opposite. But put me next to this boy and there was simply no keeping up.
Is it wet?
Sleeping bag is gonna be.
He really held his own out there, and with a we can get anywhere attitude, in the cold and mud and rain we walked on.
I recommend not walking this in the rain. That's disgusting.
You can jump in that little thing and get soaked up to here. You're waiting for me to step.
Reaching the timber trail, a shared biking and hiking path, we hired mountain bikes and spent 2 days riding 80 kilometres of dirt trails through forests and over stunning suspension bridges. My family would be the first to tell you I've never been very naturally coordinated. I think I probably crashed as many bikes as I rode growing up, and I still can't catch a ball to save my life. But I certainly wasn't about to miss out on this, and crossing the 1,000 kilometre mark of the TA, I'd much rather say, I can't believe we did this, rather than, well, I wish we had.
1,000k mark, officially my longest trail I have ever taken on. About 55k's down on the timber trail, 1,000 kilometers officially on the TA. I am now a third of the way through.
Barely a few hundred metres before returning our bikes to their drop-off points, a lady crashed out. With a sling and a suspected broken bone, I thanked my lucky stars this wasn't me with my 2,000 kilometres left to walk. So walk on we did, right through for hours to Taramanui. Then, still chasing an adventure, made a spontaneous plan to hitch the 100 kilometres again off trail to see Lake Taupo and swim in hot springs. Back on track, we headed for the volcanic heart of Tongerro National Park. However, with low visibility and bad weather rolling in, the normally popular Tongerro crossing was left just to us. We had by this point locked in bookings and dates to canoe the Wanganui River, and were left with little choice but to keep moving forward. Soaked from the morning's rain, freezing in the high winds and elevation, and now both terribly sick with a stomach bug, this day probably couldn't have gone much worse. That said, it is a stunning place, and one I look back on fondly.
Talk about bloody cold. I'm on an alpine crossing. We got snow on the surrounding peaks and the wind is just blowing a gale today. It's so pretty up here. I am headed to a hut for tonight. I've actually booked a tent site, which is kind of silly because I was locked out to get out of this weather. Right, I'll see you guys there.
But sheltered alone behind rocks on the peak of a volcanic pass, winds too strong to move without digging in your hiking poles and still sliding in place, I genuinely was beyond grateful to make it out safely and to see the warm mountain hut on the other side. They say you don't grow in comfort, but I think it's the wildest days that make the best memories, and whether it's stupidity or determination, I've learnt enough about myself on trails to know I'd do them all again. Having lost half a day trying to get better, we pushed a 52-kilometre trail day, making it to the river right on time. The journey from here is roughly a 170-kilometre, 5-day paddle following the river.
You did great! It's all about to fall out.
It's considered, interestingly, to be one of New Zealand's great walks, and is officially part of the TA Trail, even though we won't be doing any actual walking. For us, it was a nice change to have the packs off, and was actually a very relaxing first 2 days.
My nap spot. This is day 2 of me captaining this boat. You just eating snacks and slacking. Okay, this is proof that Dawson is in fact doing something. Not me napping down here, my paddle, doing lots of work.
It wasn't until the 3rd day that we hit some more serious rapids, and being as go with the flow as we are, decided to hit them head on. We were up for the challenge.
Paddle! Oh, we're gonna get cooked! Paddle!
So we're going in. Oh shit! I'm gonna bail us out of here and spun her. No!
Stacked it. We survived.
We're chilling.
We made it through.
Of course, you can see how that went for us. But clothes soaked and barrels taking in water, we still had a pretty good laugh and spent the afternoon drying everything out.
Day 4 on the river. Today's objective is to not end up in the river. We'll see if we can do that.
Days 4 and 5 were a lot drier, with all people and barrels remaining inside the canoe. We met locals on the river who took us on quad bikes.
Holy shit!
And on finishing at the Wanganui Township, said goodbye to the canoe and hitched off again, this time to the west coast, to see Mount Taranaki and the black sand beaches around New Plymouth that the TA miss. The final real challenge of the North Island comes after the walk down to Palmerston North, a relatively big city inland from the west coast. It's where you pass the halfway point of the TA and move back into thick, muddy forests.
Very rainy out here this morning. I've just actually as well this morning passed by the halfway mark for the trail, so 1,500 kilometers down. Very wet, very foggy. Stoked to be getting it done. I think I have about 200 kilometers left of the North Island and then about 1,300 in the south.
Now, well beyond the river paddle and back to walking on my own, I felt strong, and I'd like to think the 40-plus days of trekking had helped build some trail fitness. Or at least that's what I told myself as I slipped and splashed my way through rough hills towards the Te Araroa range. The area is notorious for wild weather that can deteriorate rapidly and has a constant warning for extreme conditions year-round. It's recommended as a week plus of walking from Palmerston, and knowing that much weight and food would make the climbs even tougher, I went in with just a few days of snacks I'd grabbed on my way out of town and an intention to make it out in just 4 days. I wouldn't say I was unprepared. I knew what I had and where I could get out if I needed right before climbing into the range. It's interesting. When you're out for that long, you start to develop a feel for what you need and how far you can go. There's no need for a list or overthought plan. You just go with it and trust you'll get there when you get there. The first day officially in the Tararuas, the weather was beautiful, rewarding me with a chilly mountain sunset. The second was not, with rain and thick fog blowing in. It wasn't so much a surprise, I had expected it, but it did make progress slow as any muddy trail does, and passing by a hut, a bivvy, and some of the most stunning mossy forest, I spent near 12 hours on trail this day, taking on the wind and rain until the clouds broke right over Nichols' hut and I stayed the night. The following day the rain cleared, but the wind did not.
It's so windy up here again this morning. Clouds just blowing through across the trail, but it's not raining, which is pretty nice. Let's see if I can get down off here before it does.
It was a long, muddy walk out, landing me back down in the valley for lunch. Then out to camping and old access roads at Otaki Forks. I met an ex-ranger here, a man who knew the country well and had worked for the Department of Conservation. He was sweet and patient and taught me the names of local vines and grasses like toitoi and supplejack, what you could eat and what was dangerous. Leaving the TA to learn, we walked an access road cut by a landslip, and reaching the other side, he was kind enough to give me a lift to town. The final stretch of the North Island runs down the coast and into Wellington, So back in civilization, I left my pack and spent the last days slack packing along well-maintained trails and through town with just what I needed for the day. In town, I ate pastries and finally replaced my busted shoes, ready to stop getting rocks in the sides. Then, beyond the city, I walked to the southern terminus, 1,726 kilometres of trail from Cape Reinga, and now physically at the bottom of the North Island with the best still to come.
Just over 1,700 kilometres done, and officially I have made it down to the southern terminus of the Northern Island. So one island done, one to go. Tomorrow I head down south and we'll keep walking.
No better place, no sweeter bliss than right here, right now, easy like this.